Beneath the surface of the sea, a powerful new weapon is unleashed in World War I, the submarine. To some, it violates the code of the sea. Fair warning, rescue, honor. American Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan in 1900 calls the submarine inhuman and cruel. A British admiral calls it underhanded, unfair, and un-English. In the years before World War I, Winston Spencer Churchill, First Lord of the Admiralty, is heavily influenced by an outspoken tutor, the former First Sea Lord Sir John Fisher, in the conviction that British sea power must include submarines, irreverently called Fisher's toys. In Germany, similarly persuading the Kaiser is the naval chief, Grand Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz. The Kaiser needs little persuasion, refers to the Army, but my Navy. In the early 1900s, Krupp is building subs for other nations, particularly Russia. Germany allows her rivals to spend money for development, then steps in and begins to build the best for herself. Defensive short-range submarines, but long-range vessels for the offensive. By 1913, Germany is spending as much for submarines as she is for capital ships. When war comes, Germany has only 33 submarines, but 28 are long-range. Britain has 74, but only 18 are capable of much more than shore patrol. On September 22nd, 1914, the ominous German threat explodes into reality. The U-9 picks up 3 old British cruisers, Aboukir, Hogue, and Cressy, steaming abreast off the Dutch coast. Aboukir is hit, capsizes in 25 minutes. Hogue and Cressy come to a dead stop to pick up survivors. U-9 fires again. And again. Cruisers are hit. Both will sink. 1,400 men are lost. Stunned, the Admiralty issues new orders. Heavy ships are not to stop for survivors. Survivors will be left on their own. The new weapon is a form of blockade. The U-35 out of Trieste sails into the Mediterranean for a duck hunt among merchantmen. The U-35 strikes on the surface and is still operating under the prize rules of international and maritime law. Fair warning for merchantmen. Each vessel is searched for contraband, its crew ordered to abandon ship. The U-boat commander does not waste a torpedo. He will use his deck gun. Only the merchant captain is taken aboard the crowded sub. The rest of the crew will have to make it by lifeboat. The German press trumpets these successes, often indicating they are in the North Sea, where the British fleet is patrolling, instead of the easier Mediterranean. But Germany is faced with a grave decision. Can the U-boats continue to surface, exposing their thin hulls, to warn and then to sink? Or must they fight from below the surface, without warning? The answer will profoundly affect the war and Germany. Since October 1914, Britain has enforced a blockade of the English Channel and the entire North Sea. The aim? To strangle Germany by choking off her supplies. Only a narrow channel for neutrals is left open. In February 1915, the Germans retaliate. All waters surrounding Britain are declared a war zone. Hostile merchant ships will be sunk without warning. Neutral ships are in danger because of alleged British misuse of neutral flags. There is shock. The idea of sinking unarmed merchantmen, of not rescuing crews, is abhorrent to most naval leaders. In Britain, the stern reality is this. A successful blockade will starve the island into submission in 3 months. But the German effort is something less than successful. By May 1915, only 51 of 15,000 ships entering Britain have been sunk. The trawler fleet is getting through. There is some belt-tightening, but hardly cause for alarm. The flow of traffic into Britain perplexes and incenses the Germans. Everybody seems to be running the U-boat blockade, while few neutral merchantmen ever defy the British minefield blockade of Germany. The Germans cannot see that mines are more discriminating or less reprehensible than U-boats. In Germany, the pincers of blockade are felt almost at once. Within a year, there will be food riots and people fighting for leavings at the garbage dumps of military camps. Food prices will skyrocket, up 83% in Berlin, 112% in Vienna. It's 7 ounces of bread a day, 7 pounds of potatoes a week, meatless Tuesdays and Fridays, 1 egg per person per week, rationing strictly enforced. And Butterstehen, to stand and wait for butter, becomes part of the German lexicon. The Germans, feeling the pinch, retaliate swiftly and predictably. The U-boats strike savagely at British shipping. When the Germans order unrestricted warfare, no more stop and search, neutrals, especially the United States, are outraged. It is a violation of the Hague Convention. The Germans insist neutral merchantmen will be spared. This ship is not neutral. She flies the British flag. Her fate will shock the world. Her name is Lusitania. She is 88 feet abeam, better than 30,000 tons. Her cruising speed, 25 knots. She is everywhere regarded as one of the marvels of the 20th century. A floating palace, a seagoing hotel. She borrows extravagantly from the style of the flamboyant resorts of the period. A plush, heavy, government-subsidized wonder. Full of inlaid mahogany, thick velvet drapes, elevators, cabin telephones, electric appliances, even a primitive kind of air conditioning. On the bridge, Captain William H. Turner, 59, commanding the fanciest, fastest, and safest ship in the world, the unsinkable Lusitania. It is May 1st, 1915, Saturday morning in New York, sailing day for the Lusitania. D.W. Griffiths, the birth of a nation, is packing them in on 42nd Street. Bloomingdale's is pushing pianolas. The stores are promoting Blue Serge Week for men and Prince of Wales walking sticks. Cunard has an ad this day, too. Lusitania, the fastest and largest steamer now in Atlantic service, sails at 10 a.m. Next to it, another ad, a warning. Vessels flying the flag of Great Britain are liable to destruction. Travelers do so at their own risk. Imperial German Embassy. Pier 54 at the foot of 11th Street in the heart of the meatpacking district, Lusitania's sailing is delayed until 12:30 p.m. There are 1,300 passengers, including 129 children, plus 700 crew. First-class passengers pay $137.50 and up, one way. There are only 12 passenger cancellations. Of the German threat, Captain Turner, confident his ship can outrun any submarine afloat, says, "The best joke I've heard in years." In the listed cargo, the only possible contraband is 4,200 cases of small arms ammunition. There is a rumor that the ship carries $6 million in gold bullion. The manifest does not show it. There is a rumor the ship is armed. The British deny it. So does New York's collector of the port, who inspects the vessel before sailing. There are 159 Americans aboard. Their presence alone is regarded as a deterrent to any U-boat attack. As the Lusitania leaves Ambrose Channel, the German submarine U-20, 35 men, 3 officers, is heading on a course of destiny. The hunting grounds off the old head of Kinsale in Queenstown. It is the first patrol for her commander, Captain Lieutenant Walter Schwieger. He has sunk 3 ships in 48 hours. There's 3 torpedoes left. Across the broad Atlantic, 2 tracks, Lusitania and U-20, begin their deadly convergence. Captain Turner has been ordered to zigzag, does not, afraid it will frighten the passengers. He has been warned twice of U-boat activity, but reduces speed to 18 knots, so he will make port on the tide. At 2 p.m., May 7th, 1915, Schwieger sees a black shape and submerges. The big brute of a ship is turning toward him, starboard side too. I cannot miss, he says, and fires. The torpedo smashes into a boiler room. In 18 minutes, unsinkable Lusitania sinks 300 feet down to the sandy bottom 8 miles off the Irish coast. At Cunard offices, there is the numbing wait as the names of survivors are slowly posted. 1,198 passengers and crew are dead. 63 are small children. 128 are American. Queenstown, as ship after ship brings in the more than 700 survivors, the American consul reports on the tragedy. Bruised and shuddering women, crippled and half-clothed men, and a few wide-eyed little children. Piles of corpses like cordwood on the shadowy old wharf. At Queenstown on May 10th, the first group of more than 100 victims is laid to rest in common graves. In the United States, there is stunned shock, then editorial fury unparalleled since the sinking of the battleship Maine in 1898. This is the New York Sun cartoon. The usually reserved New York Times declares, this is not war. In London, a solemn funeral procession is held for the ship itself. Several cities, grief erupts into violent anger. Mobs sack stores with German or German-sounding names. The bobbies do not always rush to step in. In the United States, the rage of the press has not subsided. A German-American is arrested for perjury after saying in court that he saw guns on the Lusitania. Gets 18 months in jail. Theodore Roosevelt calls the sinking piracy and murder. Trying desperately to be neutral, Woodrow Wilson at first says, there is such a thing as a man being too proud to fight. Then sends Germany a series of notes affirming the rights of American citizens to travel on the high seas without danger, and declaring that any repetition of unrestricted submarine warfare will be taken as deliberately unfriendly. While the Germans weigh the situation and the British implore America to act, Teddy Roosevelt calls the notes too weak, and Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan calls them too strong. Bryan resigns in protest. The Germans interpret deliberately unfriendly as meaning war. and early in 1916 call off unrestricted submarine warfare. The menace of the U-boat subsides for the time being. The next time Germany raises it, in 1917, the horror of the Lusitania will be revived, and America will go to war.